To see tomorrow's PC, look at today's Macintosh.
Byte magazine recently said, "It would not be an exaggeration to describe the history of the computing industry for the past decade as a massive effort to keep up with Apple." And with the launch of Windows 95, it appears that effort continues. But while Windows 95 represents a substantial step forward for the PC world, it still falls short of the standards set by the Macintosh. Not only because the Macintosh remains much easier to configure, learn, use, and expand, but also because while Apple's competitors have been working to recreate the Macintosh experience, Apple has introduced innovation after innovation to create the next generation of personal computing, with computers that are even easier to use, faster than ever before, with more advanced multimedia, and even greater compatibility with PCs. We'll explore these points in more detail in the rest of this video.
Macintosh System 752 is by far the easiest, smoothest, most usable operating system out there.
Many PC users expected Windows 95 to make the PC as easy to use as the Macintosh. But the fact is, the Macintosh is still much easier to use and expand than a PC running Windows 95. That's because the Macintosh is a better integrated system than a PC running Windows 95. Apple is the only major personal computer company to craft both the hardware and the operating system software together to operate as a single, seamless whole. That's why you can insert a disk into a Macintosh floppy drive, and an icon for the disk will appear immediately on screen. It's why you can insert a PC disk into a Macintosh, and the Macintosh will recognize that the disk comes from a PC. It's why you can copy fonts, control panels, and sounds to your system folder, and the Macintosh will place each where it needs to go. It's why your Macintosh can actually lead you through tasks step by step. And it's why you can expand a Macintosh so easily, adding CD-ROM drives, scanners, even additional monitors, so you can work across two screens with an integrated workspace. And you can do all this in practically no time at all. This tight integration between hardware and software is something Windows 95 can't match. Because in the PC world, one company makes the operating system and many different companies manufacture and assemble hardware systems, which means it's often up to the user to make sure all the pieces work together. For example, when you insert a floppy disk into a PC running Windows 95, nothing happens until you tell the computer to look for a disk in the drive. And when you insert a different disk, the contents of the first disk remain on screen until you choose the refresh command. And if you make a mistake and try to open a file from a disk that's no longer in the drive, Windows 95 will tell you that the directory name is invalid. And it's up to you to figure out what that means. This lack of hardware-software integration doesn't just make the PC harder to use than a Macintosh. It also makes the PC harder to expand. If you're like most computer users, you never seem to have enough hard disk space. So let's see what it takes to add a second hard disk to each of these new computers. The Macintosh has a built-in SCSI expansion connector, so to add a second hard disk, all we have to do is plug it into the computer, plug in the power cord, and turn on the disk and the Macintosh. PCs usually don't come with a built-in SCSI port, so to add more disk space to their PC, most Windows users would install an internal enhanced IDE hard disk. To do that, we'll have to open the computer, set the jumpers on the new disk to slave setting, attach mounting hardware, find and open IDE port on the motherboard or controller card, and plug in the new hard disk. Plug in a power connector for the new hard disk. Mount the drive in an open bay. Replace the cover and start the computer. Enter CMOS and configure the disk as a slave. Select MS-DOS from the Start Programs menu. run fdisk to partition the drive, restart the computer again. Select MS-DOS from the Start Programs menu, format the hard disk, then exit MS-DOS. And finally, double-click My Computer to see and access our new disk. It isn't just more difficult to install a new hard disk on a PC. It can be harder to use the new disk as well. For example, let's move an application from our original hard disk to the new hard disk to take advantage of its storage space and speed. On the Macintosh, all we have to do is move the application from one disk to another. And the application launches normally. But on the PC, it isn't that easy. When we move an application to the new hard disk, it may fail to open, which in this case means we'll have to reinstall the whole program. You'll run into hardware-software integration problems more often than you might think with a Windows 95 PC. For instance, let's say we just purchased a new computer and we want to build a small network so that all our computers can share the same printer. We'll use Ethernet for high performance. All Power Macintosh computers come with Ethernet networking hardware and software built in, so all we have to do is connect our computers and printer to an Ethernet hub, select EtherTalk in the network control panel, and select the printer in the chooser. That's 3 simple steps. Now, let's see what it takes to connect our new PC. Most PCs don't come with networking cards built in. So, to get the same Ethernet printer sharing capability on the PC, we'll have to install Ethernet cards in each computer. That's 11 steps for each one, and it's just the beginning. Next, we have to configure one computer as the print server. That's another 13 steps. Finally, we have to define the printer that we want the client computers to use. Another 6 steps for each PC. All in all, the PC required 27 more steps than the Macintosh. And that's not counting any IRQ or I/O address conflicts that you may encounter, even if you're using Windows 95 plug-and-play cards. Because even with plug-and-play, PCs still have a limited number of IRQs and I/O addresses. So the more peripherals you add, the more likely it is that you'll have to resolve IRQ and I/O address conflicts. We've seen that the integration of the hardware and software make the Macintosh easier to use and easier to expand. It also makes the Macintosh easier to troubleshoot. If a problem occurs on a Macintosh, the most common solution is to disable an extension or control panel. But with a PC running Windows 95, correcting problems may force you to edit system files like win.ini, system.ini, system.dat, or ms-dos.sys. Which brings up another interesting point. Many people thought that Windows 95 would be the end of DOS as we know it. But the fact is, DOS is still present in Windows 95. To see what this means, let's look at one of the most well-publicized features of Windows 95 is shortcuts. A shortcut acts as a reference to a file or application. It's a simple idea in concept. In practice, though, Windows 95 shortcuts are more complex because they're based on DOS path names. So, if you happen to move the original file, thereby changing its DOS path name, the shortcut may not be able to find it. Now, the Macintosh has shortcuts too, known as aliases. In fact, the Macintosh has had them since 1991. And unlike Windows 95 shortcuts, Macintosh aliases maintain their links to their underlying files, even when you move the original file to a new folder or to a new hard disk. You can even attach an alias to an intercompany email and send it over the network. And the alias will still be able to locate the original file on the network and open it.